welcome to Defen, all the way from France. Christophe, long-time friend. No, I mean, as old as Clojure, I think.
Yes.
He's in the Clojure since the beginning of the Clojure, the Genesis. And then Baptiste, that I don't know much about. So I think I know everything about Christophe. I don't know anything about Baptiste, so I think we can wrap it up.
This is the
That's pretty much
baptism
it.
of fire, this one.
So welcome.
yeah,
So
sorry,
maybe a
sorry.
little bit of introduction, right? So you guys choose who wants to tell a little bit about yourself, and then get us into the projects later.
Go ahead, Christophe. You're the oldest.
Okay. Priority to the
age before beauty, they say, you know.
Yeah.
Don't reveal it. People are not seeing the video. Nobody knows who is older here.
Okay, so I've been part of the Clojure community since almost the beginning. I stumbled on the language when it was something like 3 months old.
Wow.
And since then, I've been more or less visible member of the community. And I've been working exclusively in Clojure for at least 10 years. I don't count, but at least 10 years. And I've co-authored a long time ago a book at O'Reilly on Clojure. It was the first book at O'Reilly who broke the O'Reilly mantra, no list book.
Yeah.
And
is that true? There was no a mantra saying no list books.
Yeah, because basically the reasoning was that there were already many list books of quality and they didn't solve it.
Oh. Oh, okay.
So O'Reilly was refusing new list books at the time. But Clojure was not quite Lisp and so on. So by Lisp at the
So
time,
you
it
tricked them.
was a scheme and common Lisp.
So you're
Well,
like a proper Clojurian. You just snuck it in there.
It was not me directly because I got the job third hand. First author sold the project to O'Reilly. Then he found that it was too much for itself. He asked Chas to join. Then the original author departed to another thing. So Chas asked Brent Kapper and myself to join. So really, it was a third hand thing. But anyway, I wasn't involved in getting the foot stuck into the door for O'Reilly. And and for now about 3 years, I've been working with Baptiste. We have been pairing on most projects, and a bit more than 2 years ago, Baptiste started to wonder about creating a new Lisp for coding mobile. But then I believe that he is going to pick the story from there and maybe introduce himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you believed I was crazy also.
I still do.
Okay. Yes, so Baptiste, I'm basically a classical software engineer. I started here in Paris for French startups, doing boring JavaScript and PHP. So something like 6-7 years ago, I was asking myself if this job was for me because I lost the love, basically.
Yeah.
And I discovered Clojure thanks to Uncle Bob,
Oh.
a video of Uncle Bob. And once I tried, I took, I think it was something like 3 months leave. And since then, I tried to almost work exclusively in Clojure. And because the community is so small here in France, I rapidly met everyone thanks to Iram, which is the main organizer of the meetup here in Paris. And then later on, I met Christophe for a project he wrote, Portkey. I don't know if you've heard about it. Anyway, we worked together on Portkey, and from there it was a love story.
Oh,
Fraternité.
yeah, brotherhood, I prefer.
Brotherly love, you mean?
And about so yeah, I think we started building together because I think we forgot to at least I forgot to say that I also was an independent programmer.
Yeah.
Even before Clojure, before my encounter with Clojure, and we started 3 years ago with Christophe to build project together, and it worked well. And then right around the first COVID, the first lockdown here in France, I was really motivated to try some tiny Lisp, and it ends up being a little bigger. That's basically how Clojure Dart started.
Yeah, because Christophe, as I know, I mean, you've been in Clojure forever, as you said from the beginning, and then mostly you're working on the JVM side, right? If I remember
Yeah.
correctly. So how did the whole? No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I've done some Clojure script, but for client work, no open source on it.
Yeah. Because I mean, there was a lot of contributions from you into the core, and you did plenty of projects around Clojure. Then, how did you think about getting into it? Let's talk about the biggest project that you guys are working on right now. I mean, if we go through all your projects, Christophe, I think we need like 10 episodes or like 10 series of talking about every possible thing. So let's start with the hot topic, as they say. Why, and how did you think about picking up Clojure and Dart? Like, what was the motivation?
Maybe that's for Baptiste
so-
because he started it,
Yeah.
Yeah, quickly before Christophe answers. So I personally always wanted to implement a small Lisp, specifically on mobile devices, because I thought that React Native, I had experience with React Native, and it was very painful for me. And anyway, I just wanted to learn how to implement a small Lisp. And what was the question again?
So yeah,
why did you choose
reason,
Dart as a target?
What was the motive?
Yeah.
For me, it was a learning experience. That's about it. Learning something, and when I talked about it to Christophe, he doesn't care about writing a small Lisp because it's so easy, everyone can do.
For him.
Right. But writing a Clojure is a step above. So, yeah.
But why did you choose Dart, for instance, over like the other obvious target is TypeScript? So why would you go with Dart? Well, we already have JavaScript, so that's covered. So you want to do something new, let's say. But why would you go with Dart rather than TypeScript or Camel or something like that?
I was really impressed by the Dart VM and ecosystem, and basically Reach. Dart reaches mobile, desktop applications, even backend. I was also impressed by the hot reloading experience. And Also, I heard people in the Clojure community talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there were. I'm very bad at names, and it's very embarrassing.
Don't worry about it.
David Nolan.
David,
but it's not he's not the only one.
Mike Fikes.
Maybe Mike Fikes. Anyway,
you know who you are.
Right.
Work it out.
Yeah. You'll figure it out. We're not that big. Yeah.
And also,
yeah.
I looked a little bit also at the author of Dart.
Yeah.
I mean, it was mainly impressive. So, and who wants to do Swift? Who wants to do? And it's Kotlin, stuff like that. So.
Yeah. But it is so. How is because obviously, as you mentioned, as you guys know already, that we have this Clojure script ecosystem on top of JavaScript. So JavaScript is technically on mobile with all React Native and all this stuff. And if you switch to Dart, then that would mean that it's a new VM, new module structure, and new compilation units. Everything is new, right? So is it that different or compilation wise?
Okay, so first, my point of view. Dart and Flutter were not on my radar at all until Baptiste started playing with the idea, and so I ignored what he was doing as usual. But over the next month,
that was the reason why you fell in love with his work. He is ignoring me. Yeah,
and this perception bias where once you start paying attention about something, you spot it everywhere.
You see it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember the name of it.
Confirmation bias.
So confirmation bias. So over the next months, I heard or read several people I trust saying good things. It does not imply that I don't trust Baptiste.
you did already.
He's so mean with me on a daily basis. I'm used to it.
So several other people.
You mean you trust more?
You really
no, that's
trust.
not better.
Whom judgment I trust, saying good things about. Saying good things about either Flutter or Dart. And so I say, okay, maybe Baptiste has some at the point, and I should pay better attention. So Dart, as for it, a very good developer experience with the hot reloading stuff, and it compiles to native. Because we talked about the VM, but the VM is just used for development.
Oh, okay.
The VM is what enables all the dynamism, the auto reloading, and so on. But everything which is dynamic must disappear, or at best as a huge performance degradation once you compile to native. So it was because it was targeting native, and that you can write wedges, FFI to directly target native API if you need so. So it was a more direct way to target the platform rather than still being inside the JavaScript engine. And the and Flutter is cross-platform and has a rather okay API with good performance. So
okay. So technically, we can just make the Flutter apps in Clojure Dart. So that's the whole idea, right? Or
Exactly.
yeah. So how different is it? Because I'm now curious about what exactly is available in Clojure Dart right now. Like starting from the Clojure features, like all the persistent data structures and core async and transducers, and so how far are you guys already, and how one-to-one is it if I'm switching from Clojure to Clojure Dart?
So the biggest feature that we are missing right now is the REPL. We made a proof of concept right at the beginning of the project to be sure that we could make a REPL, but we did not ship it on, on the first release because there is still a few months left on this feature, and we are still thinking that the current compiler is enough to make great applications. So other missing features right now are sorted sets, any sorted collections, def multi. We have something, but we did not ship it because never mind. It's because I did not reuse some existing implementation in the compiler. What else is missing? We don't have core async, but we do have async handling. In Dart, you have like in JavaScript, you have async await
like a construct,
kind of construct. Yeah. So we have a special macro await so that you can use existing Dart libraries without using them or basically the future API. We have Clojure string, template, walk, test. You can test with Clojure Dart application.
Maybe I can. I think there's probably a list of all these things, but maybe we can just take a slightly different view of it, which is like when you came to build that compiler, like what was your approach? Did you like say, okay, we're going to make a copy of the ClojureScript compiler, we're going to take all of the the prototypes and all of these kind of things, or did you start from scratch, or you're emitting Dart, not code, or what is the actual like the technical approach that you took to the compiler itself?
That's how we started. Basically, that's how I started with the ClojureScript design, compiler design. And once Christophe was convinced, he looked at my code.
After he talked to more trusting parties, as he said.
Right. He looked at my code and told me that it was great, but we were going to delete everything.
It's too good for this life.
I almost regret at that time.
Hey, as they say, like the greatest code is the code that you can delete,
Of course.
No bugs.
And then
nobody can blame your code anymore. Or at least the first version of it. Yeah.
So the tricky part is that we were learning Dart and we were writing the compiler at the same time.
Right.
So we had to, at the very beginning, we had to rewrite everything, I think 3 or 4 times to find a design that fitted our need. And on top of that, Dart went from sound safety, not having sound safety, and to basically to demand its user to type everything, almost everything. So, but sorry, go ahead, Christophe.
Yeah, Dart 1 was way more dynamic than Dart 2. And Dart 2 still inherited some dynamic features from Dart 1 that we leverage at the start to write the compiler. And but progressively we realized that we could. So the first iterations were quite easy because we were using the dynamic features of Dart. But it required a lot of typing things, and the code generated was not good, and so on. But still, it helped us bootstrap. And plus, at some time, there was the release of Dart 2.12, I believe, where they switched to making types non-nullable by default. So previously, when you said in Dart that a variable was going to hold a string, it could hold string or null. After this change, it would have to only hold a string. And
so
if you
you
wanted
they introduce like a maybes or option types on everything.
Yeah, you have to put a question mark at the end of the type.
Right.
To say that it can be null. And
something like Kotlin, right? I think Kotlin does something similar, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Even Swift.
Yeah, Swift. Yeah.
Yeah, Swift and most of the ML family too.
Yeah.
And so it was a big change, and as far as I remember, there have been at least 3 phases in the development of the compiler. It was the first part where we tried to write a minimal compiler in Dart, which would bootstrap itself, and then we could switch to writing some parts of the compiler in the subset of Clojure that the Dart compiler would support, and then hot patching the compiler as we go on. But it was a bit too ambitious, and at some point we say, okay, we are going for a more classical bootstrapping or was a cross-compiling effort. So we assume that we have a working Clojure implementation. The compiler is written in CSGC, and so for now it runs only on the JVM, but the goal is to have the compiler to be able to compile itself and have the compiler be freed from the JVM. And so once we started writing the compiler in Clojure, we make good progress, and then the second milestone was when we started to introduce proper type inference and stop relying on dynamism everywhere. Because unlike dynamism in Dart is a bit akin to reflective access in Clojure on the JVM, except that it's going to fail more often.
Right.
Because there are plenty of places where you won't be able to resolve what you want, and plus it goes against the tree shaking done by the Dart compiler and so on. So there are a lot of reasons.
Remember, Christophe, that we needed to introduce type because when writing Flutter applications, there were parts of it where you had to type parameters, methods, stuff like that. So at some point in development, it was a necessity to introduce type, and the hard part of it was once you had just a little bit of type, it spreads everywhere, and we needed to have fine control of type emission.
But are the types carried all the way up to the native code, or are they just erased somewhere in between?
Between Dart and native code?
Yeah.
That's what we read, but we don't check native code right now.
Okay.
Well, native code being Asm, there's no types in Asm. So.
Yeah.
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 So just backing up then, so you started off with the ClojureScript perspective with the protocols and all that kind of stuff. And like you say, with the ClojureScript, there's no types there as such. There's classes and prototypes and things like that.
Not exactly. The ClojureScript perspective was scrapped once I joined.
Yeah. And then you moved more to a JVM approach.
But we kept the idea of trying to use prototypes everywhere. So I believe that we only have one interface, which is the interface which is the protocol interface.
Yeah.
And everything else is built on top of protocols like ClojureScript. So it's an in between the Clojure JVM and the ClojureScript. And because the type system of Dart is more stringent than the one of Java or rather than the JVM, it's also a bit more difficult to target.
Okay.
For example, the generics are not erased on Dart.
So maybe how does that compare to the CLR one, for example, then? Because it's the same thing there, like with C# and F#, they don't erase the generics. So is it a similar approach to the CLR compiler?
Baptiste has a little experience with the CLR compiler.
Yes, so I have a little bit more experience than you in the CLR compiler, but maybe not enough to compare. What can I say for Clojure Dart is basically all data structure have generics, and so let's take a persistent vector. If you create in Clojure Dart a persistent vector, it will be in pure Dart a persistent vector of dynamic, right?
Yeah, so because you can have anything in the
Yeah, but let's say you want to use it, you only use your persistent vector to wrap widgets, Flutter widgets. Basically, it's like React components. So you wrap 10 Flutter widgets in your persistent vector. The way we are dealing with this is we analyze all packages that you have, and at call site we cast the persistent widget as a persistent widget of widgets, a persistent vector of widgets.
Right.
So basically, in the end, it will be a persistent vector of widgets.
But it won't work for the generic vectors, right? If I have the data vectors, like I have like ints and whatever, some other things in a vector, then that approach will not potentially work. Then it will still be dynamic then all the way.
So if you have a vector of
a string and an int or whatever,
it will be a persistent vector of dynamic, but it's okay in pure Clojure Dart. It's okay.
Okay.
We spent a lot of time, and we are still working on this. We spent a lot of time in having hopefully a great interrupt story, because in the end, this compiler will be used for replacing JavaScript application on native targets like iOS, but also on macOS, Windows, Linux application. So it's really important for us to have an excellent interrupt story. That's why we analyze all your packages and we cast ourselves on the call sites. If, for example, you can use, like I said, a persistent vector has if a method needs a list, a Dart list. So what was your question again? Sorry.
No, we're just still talking about the compilation process.
We're talking about how the types flow basically between the stuff that you've got and then the compiled output. That's the way it's different with the CLR because there's no erasure versus the JVM where there is erasure. I think it was the original discussion.
Okay, so Baptiste was giving the example that you have a vector and that you have to pass the vector to a Flutter method which expects a list of strings. So we have this vector, which is dynamic, which can hold anything. But at this moment, it's certainly typed as vector is a subtype of Dart list. So it's okay. It's a Dart list, but maybe not of the right type for its items.
Yeah.
But the part of the Dart list API does a cast method, which allows to change the type of items.
Oh.
So
okay.
it will, if you do that on an actual Dart list, it's going to create a wrapper around the original list, which is basically just a lie about what is inside the list, and it moves the check from compilation time to runtime. It's going to check at runtime when you try to retrieve an item. It's going to check whether it's of the proper type, and if it's not, you get an error. And so we used almost the same trick for percent data structure, in that the percent data structure has two sets of methods: the Dart one for compatibility and any swap, and the Clojure one. The Clojure one is always dynamic. It's always return dynamic or object question mark for the items. But then the list part is fully typed. And when you cast, for interrupt purpose, when you cast a vector, what is happening is just that the root object of the vector is going to change to a root object with the proper list type.
Okay.
But the tree behind is still going to be completely shared with the original. It's still a person vector. They are still equal. It's just the type marker for that which has changed.
But how does it affect the the equality then? So the equality of the hash, that doesn't depend on the type marker then, if I compare this.
Yeah, we are lucky that Dart has no equality defined on collections.
Oh,
right. Okay.
So, somehow it's reasonable, because maybe not reasonable, but it can be defended.
Yeah.
Because in Java you defined a content. You have classes which are defined by the content of mutable structure. So the equality and the hash value of something may change over time. So it's not. It can be defended that if it's mutable, you shouldn't have an equality which is different than the identity.
Yeah.
And this is the point of view of Dart. So the persistent vectors and all the persistent collection in Clojure have their own equality semantics, and they work well. But you can't compare to a Dart list, because a Dart list is only equal to itself.
Oh, okay. And in terms of the compilation process, so what is the one that Clojure Dart is producing? Is it generating Dart code, and then that will be compiled by the Dart compiler, or what is the pipeline look like?
Exactly like you said.
Oh.
There's an intermediate representation below Dart, but which is not which is documented, but which is not granted to be stable.
Right, it's documented, but at the very beginning we looked into it, and the intermediate representation is documented with a big warning at the beginning. So yeah, we did not rely on that.
So what about, I mean, the obvious question is then, if you're doing that, do you have source maps for the code?
Not yet.
Not yet,
It's,
okay.
yes, you have to understand that it's still, so it's a working compiler, and you have almost all Clojure. But it's still for the brave.
Also,
the pioneers.
Yeah. Also, the last I checked, that it was a long time ago, there was no source map support in Dart. We are even one of the only other language on the Dart VM or targeting Dart. I don't know if there are many other languages targeting Dart.
Right.
So when we started, it was a certainty. Right now, I've not checked. So maybe there are other languages, but I'm really not sure.
And from the Clojure point of view, I mean, Clojure doesn't have a specification, right? Like Java, and so did that bother you? You can also blame Christophe for that, because he's been there since the beginning. Nobody bothered about spec. Sorry, spec as in, that's a different discussion. But nobody bothered about specification of the language, right? So there is no reference implementation, or like Java, there is no language spec that you can verify that, okay, we have all the things. So did that thing bother you? Is it still bothering you, or does it bother you at all? Or you're thinking, fuck it, we're gonna make our own Clojure, our own Lisp?
I will start, Christophe. No, it did not bother me. But there are funny behaviors. For example, I don't remember if it's get or nth, where you can have a float. Like, for example, let's say you want to get the first element of a vector. You can write in Clojure and ClojureScript 1.2, for example. And there are lots of very small weird behaviors to handle. And basically what we did is we looked at Clojure code and ClojureScript code, and trying to see what are the differences. And there are differences.
So we're making sure that you have the exact same bugs, like we have in Clojure.
Exactly.
We have the same thing here as well.
It's a funny
that's
sentence,
what people
but
behave.
Bugs are part of the API.
Exactly, bugs are parts of the API. So we really try to be the closest to Clojure.
The other question I've got for you is like this. Sorry, go on, Christophe. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add that we borrowed tests from both Clojure and ClojureScript, and it helped a lot to discover these corner cases, because everyone is used to work in a safe subset of the language. There are things that we never do, and so it was really useful. But at the same time, it's a dialect, so we can diverge at some point, and the point of view of Clojure is always to specify what is working, and not to say explicitly, okay, the other thing is not working. It's left in a gray zone where later on you can basically, outside of the defined behavior, it's not forgotten behavior, it's undefined behavior. And in the future, a part of this undefined behavior may become defined. So part of the design of Clojure Dart was also in some little spaces where we had to deal with the platform, try to find space right beside the defined behaviors to add our own.
Okay. I was going to ask you another little question about like the interaction with the host. I know that like obviously there's let's say there's a big mismatch between Clojure and Java and Clojure. Clojure script and JavaScript is a little bit easier in the sense that JavaScript is dynamic and Dart is typed, so it's a bit more like the JVM. But did you find like some of the types helped you a little bit with the compiler, or did you find that there was a problem with the immutability and all this kind of stuff? Did the platform help you in some way to make it easier, or was it always like, no, it was always a battle?
For me, it was always a battle. I hate types. but I have to say that it's very, very satisfying to see people write pure Clojure code and to see the generated code with all types inferred. Yeah, it's very satisfying, but no, it did not help, and that's also why we forgot about writing the first part of the compiler in pure Dart, because at that time we were not great Dart programmers, but it would have been way more difficult, I think.
Yeah, and one thing that I'd like to add about that language is that it's a little treacherous thing, which there's something which is still in Clojure Dart that we still rely on somehow. It's very rare that it occurs, and that we will have to scrap at one point is how we deal with functions. When you, by function, I mean the native function of Dart.
Mm-hmm.
When you read about function in Dart, they tell you that you can pass any object with a call function, with a call method as a function. And we tested it, and it seemed reasonable at the time. But the thing is that to proper test that, you have to fight the type system to prevent Dart from determining the type of the object. And when you do so, you discover that it's not what you expect. It's not going to automatically call the call method on any object which is in function position. What it's going to do is at compile time, when it expects a function and that it gets an object whose type is determined to have a call method, then it is going to create a wrapper to adapt from the function to the object. So it's not a dynamic part of the language. It's purely some syntactic sugar which happen at compile time and depend on types. So yeah, it was a surprise to discover that things that we took for granted in the dynamic behavior were in fact just tricks and worked only in small places. You see, if you have an object and that you pass it as a function, it's going to work. If you cast the subject as dynamic just to confuse the compiler and get the type lost, then the compiler won't be able to call it.
Oh, so it doesn't know that it's like a function anymore because the whole type
has
changed.
It needs to really needs to know the actual type at compile time of the object and the actual function signature which is expected to generate at compile time a wrapper, a shim to adapt between the two. And
So how does that work for anonymous functions and stuff like that then?
For in Dart or in Clojure?
In Clojure, if you're mapping an anonymous function into Dart, how does that play out?
It depends of the arity. So if you have a function, a Clojure function with a fixed number of parameters, we are going to generate a pure Dart function. But if you write a function with multiple arities or with a variable argument, a parameter, we need to generate what we call an IFN object, which is basically a function with a dynamic invoke.
They have that. They have that at the bottom level, do they, in the VM?
Or in Dart,
like invoke dynamic, like they have in the JVM.
Yeah, no. I mean, they don't have in Dart. You cannot write a function with multipolarity or a variable argument.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
we can have optional arguments, but not
right.
An indefinite number of arguments.
Okay.
So when we compile Clojure to Dart, we have to check if we can generate a pure Dart function, and if so, we do it, and if not, we generate an object which is implementing the IFN protocol, and depending on your arity, we generate the right methods.
And so if you pass a function to, for example, map the Dart map on list, if your function is a pure is as a singularity, it's going to work. But if it has multiple arities, you are going to have issues, and I'm not sure if we have finished the work on that. But basically, since we have discovered that the magic of coding the call method on object was a lie and was just a compiler trick, we are going to do the same thing. Being that when you pass something to, for example, to map of Dart, so we see that the map on list for Dart expects a function of a given signature. Then we look at the inferred type of the object that we are trying to pass to this function. So either we can statically determine that we already have the correct type, or we add runtime code, which is going to check the type at runtime and eventually create a wrapper to adapt and call the correct function. So it's not something that we can get around, and we thought before, because we believe in the promise of the call method, but discovering writing a compiler is really a way to become knowledgeable in all the nook and crannies of the target language. And so despite the fact that in Clojure it's frowned upon to create wrappers, here we have to do so, because Dart already does that itself. So why didn't Rome do like Romans? So
so does it affect? How does it affect the performance of the runtime in that situation, or is it kind of like not a big deal?
The performance of the runtime, but you can remove it by typing more the part that matters. We have no odd numbers to provide, plus we are still in flux, and
sure. Yeah.
But definitely there's a cost to doing more stuff at the runtime, and but we do stuff at the runtime when we can't be sure through typing inference that we get the proper thing. So if you don't want the runtime cost, you have to be a bit more specific on your types.
Yeah.
Also, like with pure Clojure, if you really want to have performances, you can still write type code. Very not.
Yeah, I think pretty much similar to we do in Clojure. Okay, you can give the hint so there is no reflection, or you can try to eliminate the reflection as much as possible.
We have a one on dynamic warning. So if we cannot infer what you are trying to do, like for example, you're trying to access a property, and we don't infer its type, we warn you, and
that's already good.
It's usually enough to understand why it happened in the first place. There is also a layer in the Clojure Dart compiler we call magic casting. Basically, we try to cast, if it makes sense, everything we can. So Christophe just talked about function wrapping, but we do it also for data structure collections, right? We do it in a few places so that you don't have to.
But compared to Java and CLR, because they have matured into something like, okay, you can write other languages on top of these things. But Dart, as far as maybe my knowledge is very limited on Dart, but I was thinking that it was supposed to be like a single language compiler, single language way of design, right? Or do you see some evolution towards Dart being a host language like JVM and CLR type of thing, or do you think it's just gonna be like Dart only sort of thing, and then you have to do all these workarounds? Where is the Dart community going in general?
It's very active. The more I'm doing Dart, the more I'm impressed by the language and the community. The fact that you can reach lots of different operating system, and that you have Flutter. I mean, it's very impressive, and yeah, there are tons of packages, tons of developer tools. So I'm not sure that people will write more compilers, because writing compiler is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's in the last 3 years, the community has grown a lot, and it's very, very impressive. We were afraid of that, by the way. We were afraid that we were afraid of Google in the first place.
Yeah, given the amount of shit that they pull the rug under.
Just drop,
But Dart has been there for more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
Christophe has something to say. What do you want to say, Christophe?
So yeah, Dart and Flutter, because somehow Flutter is still the killer application for Dart. And the adoption seems to be growing still. So what I was going to say was more on the point of whether or not Dart is shifting or pivoting to becoming more of a multi-language ecosystem. I haven't seen a sign of it, but still we have support from some core devs of Dart.
Okay.
So they are not hostile. They are. We have seen some bad feedback from the Dart community, obviously.
What do you want?
Why do you do that?
Are you
crazy?
Exactly.
Parentheses, what does?
And also, Christophe did not help by writing a tweet.
Why Dart sucks?
No, by writing so Christophe wrote a tweet with with the same code in Dart and in Clojure Dart. So
Oh.
he asked for for people yelling at him.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that tweet where it was like a third of the size or something. Was that right? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you're getting a bit of
and
flames for that one?
it was almost a line by line translation of an example.
So what was the reaction to that then? Because to me, I think it looks like, oh, okay, you've got a more expressive language in Clojure, so therefore that's the motivation to use it. But they don't like that, I guess.
No, well, they were not very aggressive. Just people asking. Basically, there are two profiles: people asking what the point of not writing Dart. So coming from Darters who don't want to learn a new language, and the other one was from Darters too, defending their language, saying that half the line differences were because of the ending curly braces being on their own line. So rather than being shorter by 2/3, it was only shorter by 1/2. So
okay, yeah.
I think this has been like the argument every time some Lisp shows up on any comparative platform. I think the first thing people point out, and then it's so easy to squabble about the syntax, right? I mean, people forget about the whole other experience, like the REPL and the entire things that you get using Clojure or Lisp. It's only about, less parentheses. Like, no, that's not the point, So that's the least of the problems.
But at the same time, I believe it was in this convo that one of the core contributors to Dart had an interesting point, which I rather adhere to, which is that Clojure Dart is more for Clojure people to reach out to what Dart has to offer, which is mainly Flutter and targeting and writing native application for desktop and mobile, rather than trying to bring Dart people to Clojure.
Sure,
exactly.
Yeah.
It works both ways, but definitely I envision more Clojure people going to Flutter than the other way around.
Yeah. I think it's like ClojureScript, isn't it? I mean, you will get a certain number of JavaScript people coming to it, but it's going to be mostly the other way around as well.
Yeah.
Because it's just a different way of thinking. It's just I was just wondering whether, sorry, wait, Baptiste, you were going to say something on top of that.
Yeah, just to finish the conversation about the community, the huge part of the huge killing feature of Dart is Flutter, and you can feel it when you're writing mobile applications, because basically it aimed its engine, it's a graphical engine, Skia. So you have exactly the same application if you, on Android or iOS or macOS, and if you've done React Native or even Kotlin or Swift, it's for me. I really think it's a killer feature. Because battling with the host, Android or iOS, is a lost battle. It's too hard. And having this graphical engine, I mean, it's really a killer feature in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess it's like a kind of like an equalizer. It's like the browser for native, because then you can just target a specific like graphical engine, like you say, and you don't have to write the application twice, because that is the ultimate goal, isn't it, of all of these tools, is to reduce the costs of this multi-platform native world that we're living in.
Right, the complexity, the global complexity of your application.
Yeah,
but you still, so it has nothing to do with Clojure Dart itself, but you still have sometimes to battle with the host. So let's say I'm writing a small Clojure Dart application. or Clojure script application with React, if I want to do what they call a share sheet, the extension, when you are browsing on Safari, you want to share something. So this has to be done in native. There are very small parts where you will struggle with not necessarily native, but the SDK of the US you are writing to.
Yeah, I think that was about to ask that as well, because I did some iOS development in Objective C, and then I every time dabble around Swift, and because you have all these frameworks that are coming with the system that allow you to access the camera related things, or ML engine on top of on device ML, for example, on these kind of things. How easy is it to integrate with Flutter, and then transitively how easy you can do this in Clojure Dart?
My opinion is it's pretty easy. It's just boring and time consuming. We've done it with Christophe. So the WK WebView in Swift. So you have the same thing for Android. And the plugin, the community plugin was not implementing some methods we needed to. So we had to add it, and it was okay. It was just a little bit long because you have many indirections between. It was more tied to the current plugin, Flutter Dart plugin, than to the interrupt story. But it's there is some Dart packages that tries to generate most of it. So let's say you want to implement SQLite. You will give the header package, the header file, sorry. And this Dart package, which is an official one, will try to generate most of the methods. And you will still have to implement some of it, but not that much.
Okay. So,
but sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so for own Dart FFI, they have a tool which is named Pigeon. I don't know if Baptiste, for the C headers, it's Pigeon or it's something else.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
They are FFI tools, and one of them is named Pigeon, and we'd like to support it, or rather integrate it in the build process more, so that you can reach to native API without having to leave Clojure, basically. So trying to reduce the boilerplate, but currently we are focusing on just getting the damn things to work well for regular development. And but for example, in the recent weeks, we have worked on a small wrapper on Flutter, which is just about cutting down the boilerplate and integrating with the Clojure way of handling state with a tone and so on. And already it has proved useful in the complexity reduction of what you need to know about Flutter to write an application.
Yeah, it's very amazing in my opinion, because we wrote applications with without any Clojure layer, meaning a Clojure library. Sorry. So we had
straight interrupt.
Right, straight interrupt, and it was pretty good. But now already it's the code would be way smaller than what we have. And like Christophe said, we are almost done on state handling. So it's also weird because our job is to ship the best compiler for Clojure Dart, but we also thought that we needed some to help the community to use Flutter, because Flutter is very tied with Dart. So we wrote a small we are writing a small library on top of it.
Nice.
Well, in my point of view, it's not very different than Clojure.java.io, for example, where you have some wrappers around an existing library. Why not? So just to make the consumption
API more Clojure-y.
palatable.
So just one more question regarding the thing. So what is the tail call optimization story? What is the recursion story? Like Dart has that one already, and then it just translates well into, or it's still like a loop recur sort of way, or trampolining, or how does that work?
Well, the same as JVM, Dart does nothing toward tail recursion. So you have loop recur. I don't know if we implemented trampoline. Well, it's not much of a function. And
we did not.
And,
so
that's welcome.
The other thing I was going to ask you was whether there was a sort of, like with Swift, there is a sort of functional Swift movement inside of the community. Let's say, they're producing functional libraries with immutable collections and, teaching people how to use like option types or whatever, which are in the language, but, I think it's new to people. Is that true of Dart as well? Is there a sort of is there a little sect inside of Dart which are interested in the functional world? Because I mean, it's got a like you say, it's got types. So wherever there are types, there must be functional people coming to look at it and think, can we do functional programming with this thing? Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know enough about the community. In your experience of interacting with it, is that something which is surfacing or?
So in the language itself, you have immutable classes.
But not truly immutable. It's
another little syntactic sugar, is it? Yeah.
You did not let me finish.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Come on, Baptiste. Come on.
He thought you already said the immutable thing, and I'm like, okay, he's done now.
Just immutable facades, like in Java.
Yeah, and in the community, you have a Dart package by the Flutter team, the Dart team, sorry, which has immutable collections. So I don't know how much it is used in the community, but there is activity around this.
And is that something which you can get inspiration from or use, or is it just something like, well, it's an interesting thing there that, that maybe one day we can take advantage of? Or?
We already implemented almost all immutable data structures.
Okay.
So we can leverage it maybe one day for interop. If it becomes a de facto data structures. But I think right now the Clojure data structure are enough to write Clojure Dart applications.
So what is the? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't see the Dart community moving in this direction at the time. It's a very practically minded community. And it comes from the language, from the design of the language itself. The language prohibits some things to be done only to be able to provide better user experience, for example, through auto-leading or tree shaking. So I'm not sure that it's going to be a fertile ground for typed FP people.
Okay, nice. So just to wrap up the conversation a little bit, because we are almost 1.5 hour now. So would you say that right now, what Clojure Dart is like the alpha level or beta, or it's even like 0.1 level, so people can start building these ones, or is there more work to be done to bring it um, to quote unquote to be utilized in production?
So my opinion is it can be used right now in production.
Yeah.
We shipped one application that is live in production. We don't have the Clojure experience yet because of the REPL. We don't have also the compiler is not bootstrapped yet. So we wrote the compiler in Clojure, and the idea is to compile the compiler to generate Dart by compiling the compiler and then having a pure Dart compiler.
Yeah. So right now you still need the JVM version of the thing.
Right.
So it's not compiled yet.
Yeah.
Also, obviously, it has been live for 1 month now, and community is very small. Obviously, there are not a lot of documentation, tutorials. There is not even a Clojure Dart website. Basically, there is a ton of work to do. We do it on our free time. There are people kind enough to sponsor us, but we're not close to being able to stop having clients. We need to live, basically.
Sure.
So my opinion is it can be used today. It's very promising. There are almost all of Clojure, but if you use it today, it will be like using Clojure script in the first year. You will have maybe some white hairs growing stuff. But if you like Clojure enough and you want to rapidly prototype stuff, I think it's a very good language. But I'm biased, of course, obviously.
Yeah. My point of view is maybe a bit more positive sounding than Baptiste.
I am positive.
Yeah, but you had a pretty long list of things which are not yet there. So before the Easter release, I was a bit afraid of the feedback, and I feared of having the compiler breaks on a lot of things. And surprisingly, it worked rather well. And we had some web new users trying stuff without and getting impressive results without having a Flutter experience. I remember some demos on channels. I was convinced that the guy was experiencing Flutter, and no, he has just picked Clojure Dart in the Flutter doc, and without asking us any question, they got very interesting results with lots of animations and transitions. So I believe that for anyone which is motivated, it's possible to get things going. Sure, you'll find some bugs, but you can do it and put it in production. And we are not going to break too much stuff from now on. There will be some breaking changes, but globally, I believe that we are more beta than alpha. While before the release, I thought that we were more alpha. And the fact that the Flutter wrapper has grown to be rather effective and will soon be even more. It's also a big part of it. And last, about the documentation and tree-level stuff and so on, we are going to have an intern working on Clojure Dart.
Oh, nice.
She should start not this week, but the week after, and for about 3 months. And so she's a repenting Gascaler. And so she's new
is this
to
her penance, is it?
Yeah. And so she's new to both mobile development and Clojure. So she's going to learn Clojure with Clojure and Clojure Dart with us. And I think that the time when you learn something is also the prime time to write down your experience and document it for the others. So basically, that's going at least the first months of our internship will be about writing down and documenting our experience.
Yeah,
it's a very good plan.
And like Christophe said, it was very impressive to see that there were not that much bugs.
You're surprised by your
because we
code.
don't have that much users.
Yes.
So every user gets one bug. That's it.
No. But the bugs we had, most of them were really corner cases bugs. So,
but it is certainly like an impressive achievement and also undertaking, right? I mean, the goal that you have set yourself to, as we were saying, that that on a language that is not really like behaving like a host language, that means you need to know so much of detail and everything, and to get it work, and it could be a really nice story for Clojure people to have one more way of building, maybe better way of building the native applications, and that's a ambitious thing.
So maybe we can just change the sort of the mode of the conversation a little bit towards like sustainability. Now you've kind of done this thing, you've achieved this initial goal, and you already make some plans, Christophe, like you say, with interns to do documentation, and you've got plans to do the next few things. But how do you, Christophe and Baptiste, definite heroes of ours, making this thing work? How do you kind of like go from like being the heroes to like being like keeping this thing going over like the next 3 to 5 years or whatever it takes, to kind of really build the community and make it a first class friend of Clojure?
Many small steps: documentation, video, the REPL, doing talks.
I was more thinking about your own situation, your business. Yeah, I mean, because you kind of like, you hinted at the fact that you've got to keep on working, and that's, I see that with like David Nolan and Mike Fikes. They've got jobs, so it's perfectly fine once you get to a certain sort of size of the code or stability of the code. Then you're just kind of like tweaking things. Is that your thinking going forward, or do you have a different vision?
Yeah, so we've not built Clojure Dart for money, obviously. Because we spent a lot of money into it. But I strongly believe that for an open source project to be stable and mature, you need some kind of business model. So we have to find one, basically. So if we talk, sorry, Christophe, if we talk about sponsoring, you really have to get thousands of them to being able to invest your time. Because people are very nice and they give 5-10 euros, and it's a lot. It means a lot. But of course, you cannot live with a few hundred euros. So yeah, I strongly believe that we need to find some kind of business model around it to make it better every year. And I've seen so much open source guys being burnt out because they were investing their free time in their projects.
Yeah.
So I don't want that. I want the Cognitech example I feel is a perfect example of what you want to do. Being able to finance Alex Miller and other people full time on the Clojure project is very valuable, and you don't necessarily see it when you're using Clojure, but it's important to have money flowing somewhere to finance people working on the compiler.
Yeah, definitely.
And for more immediate times, we hope that we'll get more contracts from clients asking to develop stuff in Clojure Dart.
Right, yes, yeah.
So that would be awesome, and it would also help us grow our team.
Every time we do a Clojure Dart project,
that adds to the project.
It helps the compiler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we can send them. We worked with the ROM research team, and we done a Clojure Dart app with them, and thanks to them, it helps a lot the compiler. Because basically we are dogfooding our compiler. So every time we spot something messy, or every time we can upgrade the API, it's it's perfect.
I mean, isn't there like again? We were talking about this on some other discussions, but aren't Nubank a very big Flutter user? So in some respects, you kind of there could be a good target customer for this kind of stuff.
Nubank is sponsoring the project. Thanks a lot to them if they are listening. Yes, I mean, we hope one day we have clients or users rather than clients like Nubank. It would be a huge win for the Clojure Dart community.
Yeah. And in terms of the maybe a last question regarding the community, to contribute to Clojure Dart, like, is it Clojure knowledge or is it the Dart knowledge that is more required right now to build, to help you out?
So, in my opinion, you don't need knowledge you don't need that much knowledge in the Dart language.
Okay.
You need to know Clojure.
Yeah, that helps.
But the part that you need to know is not documented yet is how we built the compiler.
Yeah.
But does it mean that you cannot help? No. You can help a lot with tutorials, documentation, and for small bugs. I think if we can help, we are very reachable on the Clojure Dart Slack channel or Twitter. And one day we really need to help someone to film ourselves, help someone fix a bug, for example, or stuff like that.
Yeah. Nice.
And there are two parts to Clojure Dart. There are the low-level parts where you really need to know Dart. And so some missing features like the multi-methods are going to require some Dart knowledge to design them properly. But there are a lot of low-hanging fruits in implementing missing Clojure functions, which are just missing because we didn't care, or because there are new things in 1.11 that we haven't ported, and porting them is simply just a matter of copy pasting. So these can be contributions to the project themselves. More people porting test suits also. And having gen tests working on Clojure Dart would be great. We don't have them yet. And these are all things which are pretty removed from Dart itself. So it's more a matter of getting people to work on it than having the experience in Dart itself. So plus, just trying the Clojure Dart out and documenting the pain points, what went right, what went wrong, would be awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
Also, I think people use a lot Flutter for iOS and Android applications, but I really think it's a killer framework for desktop application. If you have to choose between Electron and Flutter, for me there is no doubt.
Question that you'll just switch to Flutter. Yeah.
And we hope also to invest and document this field. But like Christophe said, there are not a lot, but there are missing functions, and most of it is because we don't use those functions and we forgot to implement them. So once every 2 months, we try to do
like
an
a
Excel to see what's missing. Some of it is also because there are functions that don't make sense. But yes, it's very easy to help us to implement those functions.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's okay, 1.5 hours. Wow. I think this is like an amazing project, as you said. Like this is bringing like a really substantially useful tool into Clojure community, right? So making it available for Clojure people to build all this stuff, just like the way Clojure script has changed. A lot of things for Clojure people writing Clojure. We were able to build a web app, and then the whole innovation around reframe and using React in the web. I think Flutter, since now Christophe says that it's it seems to be something, so I trust you, Christophe. So it's like a chain of trust now, and so it all started from Baptiste, and then now, okay, finally, now Christophe says like, it's okay, it's a reasonable thing, so I believe you. But it's as I said, it's a really nice undertaking, and I did try Flutter, but then I was like, fuck, I'm not gonna write Dart. That looks alien to me. Maybe I had the same complaints that people have towards Clojure, I have towards Dart. Like, the fuck is this? The syntax is meaningless. So I think it's going to be a really we hope that it's going to be grow bigger and better, and then Nubank using it, and maybe who knows, Google will say that, oh well, fuck Dart, we're going to switch to Clojure, then we're done. So and big
sorry.
No, I was just saying big congratulations on making the first release. That's already a big. Making it a prototype, making it work for one or two things is a different thing, and then building, being able to build your first production application with the language compiler framework that you invested so much on is an amazing achievement. So a big congratulations on that one. So
thanks a lot.
Hopefully you'll continue and then make it even better.
And I think you guys are going to be at Clojure D, if I'm not wrong, just to sort of think about the road trips you're doing or whatever. Is that because we're going to be there also at Clojure D? So,
nice.
And I think you're trying to host a workshop, Christophe. I saw something like that, or what's going on there?
Yeah, on the Friday afternoon, we are going to host a workshop, or maybe two if the attendance is too large. About getting started with Clojure Dart for writing a mobile application.
So that's Friday the 10th of June. And
yeah. And
we should have it out before then.
At Next Journals.
Yes.
We should have this episode out before then. So sign up if you can.
or go back in time and then sign up if it is later.
And Christophe, we have to take our plane tickets. Remember?
I just check the prices is fine. And also we will host a workshop at Strange Loop too.
Right.
Oh,
great.
nice. That's a really big audience then. Awesome. Nice. Then I think that's pretty much it. Or Baptiste, you were saying something, or did I miss?
Yes. So I just like to give some visibility on what we are working on.
Yeah.
So Christophe and I work on the state and management for the Flutter library. In parallel, we are starting back our work on the REPL. So basically, the two main objectives of the next 2 months is state management and the REPL.
Yeah.
And then the big milestone will be after the REPL. The big milestone will be having a Salesforce compiler.
Yeah.
Maybe in more than a year.
Yeah.
And one of our goal is to give visibility to people. That's it for me. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I would like to know, to conclude this podcast, whether to publish this or not, is is there any Emacs mode, or what is the editor that you guys use? That's all I need.
What about Emacs mode?
Yeah.
For now, we are just using the Clojure mode.
Oh, so you use Emacs then?
We both use Emacs, yeah.
Yes, that's perfect. Then Clojure Dart is destined to be a successful project.
One of us is a grumpy Emacs user. I won't tell
who. We don't need to know. We just need users.
One of us always yell when using the Emacs.
But hey, so I can just say now, Clojure Dart 100% made in Emacs. So you should just put that as a tagline.
It was made 100% in Emacs, yeah.
Awesome. That's all we need to know. I'm going to publish this today.
I have to confess, I modified devs.idn with Vim once.
Yeah, that's okay. Every now and then you can have kind of a pizza every now and then when you're having like on a healthy diet of Emacs. Every now and then you can eat some other crap. That's okay. Anyway, on that bombshell. Sorry, yeah.
It's very funny to see Christophe use Emacs. I've never seen someone use Emacs like that.
This has to be part of your workshop, by the way, at Strange Loop and at Clojure.
Yeah, for a long time, his init file was like 10 lines.
Wow. Okay, this is a minimalist. Anyway, it's really nice seeing you, Christophe, after so long. And I still owe you a big one, because the first time I started with Clojure, you're very big inspiration, and you came all the way to Rotterdam to kickstart our tiny meetup there. And at that time, I think, as you know, we had like 3 people doing Clojure in the entire Netherlands, probably. So, and also for the book and all the contributions that you made over these years, there are too many projects to list. And I'm glad that Baptiste talked you into Clojure Dart. So building a completely new one. So very happy for the release, and good luck with the project. And that's it from us for today, I think. And yeah, we'll see you at Clojure D.
Perfect.
Yeah.
See you at Clojure D.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DefN. And the awesome vegetarian music, or the track, is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page. And you can show your appreciation to all the hard work, or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me, for some unexplainable reason, you want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojure Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at Defen Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode. Happy Mother's Day, right? Ray is the mother of this podcast. So